Banks and customers could save $39 trillion every single year just by moving to Ripple and XRP. I am going to walk you through all of this information, and it is completely fact-based. It took me a while to put all of this together, so if you get any value from this video, please hit the like button. If you are not subscribed, think about doing that right now. Let us get into this because this is going to be a ton of real factual information, and after watching this video, you are going to fully understand just how much money can genuinely be saved by using blockchain and crypto technology. Let me play this clip first. Banks and financial experts are now openly saying that the traditional model of pre-funding accounts around the world, meaning keeping money locked up in different countries just so you can send payments there, is simply not needed anymore. This is what is called the Nostro Vostro account system. Banks currently have to keep piles of money sitting in accounts all over the world because if you are sending money to the UK, for example, you need dollars sitting in one account and British pounds sitting in another account just waiting to be used. This has caused massive liquidity problems for banks because enormous amounts of value are just sitting locked up and idle all over the globe, doing nothing productive. Now let us better understand how much of the global foreign exchange market Ripple actually covers. The number might genuinely shock you because it is extremely high. Since 2016, Ripple has helped serve hundreds of customers, giving them access to over 70 different payout markets, which represents over 90% of the entire global foreign exchange market. Ripple covers 90% of the global FX market. Keep that number in your head because the numbers I am about to go through are going to completely blow your mind. In that time, Ripple has processed over 27 million transactions representing approximately $50 billion in total value. And the best part of all of this is that it all happens without requiring customers to pre-fund their payments. This would unlock about $27 trillion back to the banks around the world, which they very much need right now. So how much money actually moves around in foreign exchange markets every single day? To better understand this, the current figure is about $7.5 trillion per day. Foreign exchange markets are over-the-counter, meaning transactions happen electronically through phones, brokers, banks, and other participants. The average transaction cost is around 2 to 3% of the total amount being moved. Now, to better understand the actual number of daily transactions happening in the foreign exchange market, we used an average of 6 to 7.5 million transactions per day. The reason for this is that when banks are moving money, they are not sending $50 or $100 at a time. They are sending large amounts, roughly $1 million per transaction on average, to cover many different payments at one time. For comparison, the XRP ledger currently processes about 1.8 million transactions per day, so there is plenty of room to grow into handling the full FX market volume. Now that we have this data, let us figure out what it all costs. With $7.5 trillion moving per day in the foreign exchange market and a 3% fee on 7.5 million transactions per day, the total cost comes out to $225 billion per day. Even at the lower end of just 1% fees, that is still $75 billion per day being paid in transaction fees. Now here's the number that made my jaw drop completely. If you use the XRP ledger for those same foreign exchange transfers and it only costs $0.0002 per payment, the total cost for all of those global transactions would be just $1,500 per day. Not $75 billion, not $225 billion, just $1,500. I was genuinely shocked when this math came through. My wife saw my reaction and asked if I was okay, and I could barely speak. Let me break this down simply so it really sinks in. Foreign exchange trading volume is $7.5 trillion. Number of transactions is 7.5 million. Current cost at just 1% is $75 billion per day. Cost using the XRP ledger is $1,500 per day. That means you save $74,999, $998, $500 every single day. If you multiply $1,500 per day times 365 days in a year, that comes to roughly $547,000 per year in total transaction costs. Compare that to the current system, which costs approximately $27 trillion per year at 1% fees. The savings are so large they are almost impossible to fully comprehend. Now, I also wanted to understand how much money flows through the stock market every day. Major exchanges like the NYSE and NASDAQ handle about $200 billion per day in trading volume. The typical fees on these transactions range from $5 to $15 per trade for stocks and ETFs, up to $100 per trade for some managed accounts, and sometimes 1 to 2% of the total transaction value depending on your portfolio manager. Using $200 billion in volume per day and a 2% fee, the total cost comes out to about $4 billion per day. If you use the XRP ledger instead, the cost would be just $400 per day instead of $4 billion per day. This is exactly why moving the stock market onto the XRP ledger could send the XRP price into the thousands of dollars per coin. It could also allow stock trading to happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, at an almost unbelievably low cost compared to what is charged today. Think about this for a moment. If banks switch to XRP and start saving billions of dollars per day, they can offer dramatically better services to their customers. They can lower all of their fees. They can still make a very healthy profit. They can still be enormously successful businesses. They just do it while spending a tiny fraction of what they currently spend on moving money around. The reasons banks are looking to move to new systems are clear: outdated technology, messaging problems between different banking systems. That is exactly why ISO 20122 is being implemented. Speed issues, transaction cost savings, liquidity benefits, regulatory requirements, security upgrades. Ripple can come in and set up a bank to move value instantaneously in as little as 3 weeks. That is the fastest timeline I have heard from someone at Ripple, though it usually takes 2 to 3 months. Even 2 to 3 months is remarkably fast compared to the 6 to 18 months it typically takes to install a new system inside a major bank. Let me now look at cross-border payments specifically because this is even more eye-opening. According to various sources, approximately $21 trillion moves around the planet every single day in total payments. SWIFT alone processes about $100 billion in cross-border transactions. JP Morgan moves $10 trillion per day. Global cross-border payments could reach $250 trillion per year by 2027, which works out to about $685 billion per day. The average cost of these transactions is significant. SWIFT transfers cost $25 to $50 on average, not including intermediate bank fees. Exchange rate markups add another 2 to 5%. The global average total cost of sending money internationally is 6 to 7% of the transaction amount. So if you are sending $10,000, the bank takes $600 to $700 of that just to move your money. That is a massive amount of money that you are losing every time you make an international payment. Now, if the XRP ledger were used for these cross-border payments and the average cost is 0.2 cents per transaction, the savings are staggering. Cross-border payments are expected to reach $290 trillion annually by 2030, which is roughly $796 billion per day. At current average fees of 2 to 5%, the total daily fees being paid come out to about $27 billion per day. If you used XRP instead, you would be looking at $159,000 per day. Let that sink in. $27 billion per day compared to $159,000 per day. Multiply $27 billion times 365 days, and you get $9.8 trillion per year being paid in fees under the current system. Under the XRP system, that same $9.8 trillion per year gets reduced to essentially nothing. And if we look at the full $21 trillion in daily global payments at a 5% average fee, the current system costs about $15 billion per day. Using XRP instead would cost just $4.9 million per day. Your total annual savings from just this one category would be approximately $3.8 to $3.9 trillion per year. Add that to the $27 trillion in savings from the foreign exchange market, and you are looking at over $30 trillion in annual savings combined. And that is before even touching derivatives, which I did not include in these calculations. The total savings across all markets combined could be approximately $65 trillion per year, just by using XRP instead of the current banking infrastructure. That number is genuinely mind-boggling. Now, there is also a fascinating report from March 2023 by the IMF titled Trust Bridges and Money Flows about improving cross-border payments. On page 23, they specifically mention 2 digital assets, XRP and XLM Stellar. The Bank for International Settlements also publishes their money flow data, and there is a dedicated space in that flow for private cryptocurrencies. The winners in this new financial system appear to have already been chosen, and XRP is clearly one of them. Ripple is also getting completely overwhelmed right now with inbound requests from large financial institutions wanting to work with them on tokenization of assets and custody solutions. Ripple's custody division, formerly known as Medico, is working with some of the largest financial institutions in Europe, including DBS, HSBC, BBVA, and Swiss banks. They are trusting Ripple to come in and not only provide custody, but allow them to tokenize their assets and put everything together in one package. The amount of interest being shown by major institutions is described as truly astounding. Now I want to explain what Brad Garlinghouse said about getting paid daily, because this really connects to everyday people's lives. Most people who work a regular 9-to-5 job get paid once or twice a month. The reason for this is that it is extremely expensive for a business to run payroll more frequently than that under the current system. But if your employer moved to blockchain, they could pay you every day, every hour, or theoretically every second you work. Think about what that would mean for the average person who lives paycheck to paycheck. Many people cannot cover a $600 or $800 unexpected medical bill because their money has not arrived yet. If you were paid every single day, that changes your financial reality completely. You would not need to take out short-term loans to survive between paychecks. You would not face the financial stress of waiting 2 weeks for money you have already earned. The only reason this does not happen today is the friction and cost of making payments. Remove that friction with XRP and everything changes. The secondary effects of this are almost impossible to fully predict, just like nobody predicted 20 years ago that you would one day be able to call a car from your phone using a rideshare app. Now, people sometimes get confused about what the XRP ledger actually is versus what Ripple, the company, is. The XRP ledger is essentially a global decentralized network where banks, the IRS, universities, and many other entities serve as nodes or validators on the network. It operates at almost free transaction cost. Transaction validations happen globally through a decentralized consensus process that is exceptionally fast, low energy, highly scalable, and will grow further with emerging quantum computing capabilities. It fully supports the XRP token and also supports custom private tokens, sovereign currencies, commodities, and virtually unlimited tokenized forms of value. This is where XRP's price could jump dramatically into the hundreds or thousands of dollars if you start bringing $50 trillion or more worth of real-world value onto the ledger. Over the next 5 to 10 years, the best technologies will have the biggest impact on global financial markets. And if you ask any major financial institution who they would call first if they wanted to upgrade their systems to blockchain, Ripple is going to be on that list every single time. RLUSD Ripple's stablecoin is also going to play a massive role in all of this. Not every bank is going to want to use XRP directly in every payment flow. A lot of banks will prefer to use stablecoins. And if you have been listening to people in the Trump administration, they keep emphasizing how important stablecoins are going to be for the new financial system. If Ripple has the most highly regulated stablecoin on the planet, banks are obviously going to gravitate toward using it. And something remarkable just happened. RLUSD's trading volume skyrocketed by 2,000% in a very short period and hit $600 million in volume. For comparison, PayPal's stablecoin, which is considered a successful product, is only doing $22 million in volume right now. The difference in scale is enormous. Now let us talk about Bank of America because they are the second largest bank in the United States behind JP Morgan Chase, and they move trillions of dollars per day. There are reports that Bank of America has been doing 100% of their internal transactions on Ripple, and they hold 83 different patents related to this technology. The impact that Ripple and XRP could have on Bank of America and its customers alone is truly significant. And then there is Bitstamp, which has become a major global exchange connecting with the top 30 central banks around the world to offer cryptocurrency services. Banks are now able to offer their customers direct access to crypto markets from inside their own existing apps, without customers needing to move money to a separate platform. This is global adoption happening right now in real time. Now here is a personal story that perfectly captures why all of this matters for regular, everyday people. I was driving my wife to work recently. She works at a bank here in Honolulu. I started telling her about this video, and she explained to me what actually happens when their bank sends an international payment. She said they often use Citibank because large banks like Citibank, HSBC, and JP Morgan have the most extensive global banking connections. When they send a payment to somewhere like France or Europe, they enter all the information and send the payment out to Citibank. After that, they have absolutely no visibility into where the payment is. They cannot track it. They cannot call Citibank to check on it. They have no system that connects them to the status of the payment. It just disappears into the system for 2 or 3 days. If something goes wrong or a number was entered incorrectly, the payment eventually bounces back and the entire process has to start over from scratch. And throughout all of this, Citibank charges a percentage fee to move the payment. This is the current state of international banking, and it is happening at enormous scale every single day. Now imagine if we could supercharge a new system into the current banking infrastructure. What would that do for everyday people and for the global financial system? You unlock $27 trillion that is currently sitting idle and locked up in banks around the world. That money goes back to work. Banks that free up hundreds of billions of dollars can loan more money to customers, to small businesses, to students, to communities. That creates more economic growth and more jobs and better living standards in every country that money flows back into. This is exactly why being informed about the technology that banks and financial institutions are going to adopt matters so much. I am going to continue giving you the best and most accurate information about Ripple and XRP right here on this channel. I love you all so much and thank you genuinely for being here. You've used 90% of your session limit upgrade.